Revealed. The amazing journey of a humble farm boy who transformed his life to create Lamborghini. Jake stood at the edge of the golden cornfields that seemed to stretch endlessly beneath the vast blue sky. Life on the modest farm shaped him, where mornings began with the rooster's crow and ended under a blanket of twinkling stars. But inside him stirred a yearning for something different, a world of engineering and speed. As the only son, he felt the weight of expectation, the silent pressure of a legacy. He was destined to inherit a life tethered to the earth while his heart raced for the highways. One crisp autumn afternoon, adventure awaited as he explored the old barn. Dust danced in the sunlight as he pushed through cobwebs hanging like memories. Jake's eyes fell upon an abandoned tractor, rusted but rich with potential. It was a hulking machine, silent yet filled with stories of the past. With every bolt he tightened and every layer of grime he scrubbed off, he poured his heart into it, a symphony of aspirations and dreams of becoming an engineer. Then came tragedy, shattering the budding hope that had formed in the barn. A local veteran, Mr. Thompson, well loved for his kindness, was involved in a terrible accident. His friendly smile and wise insights had once guided Jake's childhood questions. This heart-wrenching event transformed the community, revealing simmering tensions like brimming pots about to boil over. Prejudices surfaced, leaving Jake to question the very values his parents had indelibly etched in him. As dark clouds loomed over his aspirations, Jake faced a heart-wrenching dilemma: loyalty to his family versus the dreams igniting within. Sullen glances and whispering neighbors bound him to a past where success was measured by family lineage rather than merit. Just when the shadows threatened to swallow him whole, an unexpected ally appeared, an accomplished but now reclusive engineer named Mr. Sanders. He saw Jake's passion and, in a blasting voice, urged him to enter a national engineering competition, igniting a fire of determination within him. But the journey was not without its trials. With the community steeped in tradition, scorn and doubt became familiar companions. Each setback pressed heavily on his chest as rejections threatened to snuff out the flames of his dreams. Yet, through sheer grit, Jake forged a prototype that stirred whispers of admiration. The hum of motors and the scent of gasoline filled the air as he captured the attention of outsiders. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Standing on the precipice of his dream, Jake felt tension crackle in the air around him. The fate of the community hung in a delicate balance, and as he prepared for the competition that could redefine his life, those final judgments, the very ones that sought to bind him, loomed larger than ever. Could he rise above the prejudices that had held him down for too long? With his heart racing and hope surging, the question hung tantalizingly in the air. Would he break free from the expectations, or would the dreams of a humble farm boy be swallowed by the very ground he stood on? As the days crept closer to the competition, Jake poured every ounce of himself into his project. Each afternoon, he would race from the fields, heart hammering, eager to tinker away at his prototype. The old barn became a sanctuary for him and his dreams, filled with the whir of tools and the warm glow of a single light bulb swinging overhead. Dust circled in golden rays, transforming the space into a makeshift workshop pulsing with possibility. But shadows lurked just beyond the barn doors. Local chatter followed him like a ghost, echoing disapproval in hushed tones. "That boy thinks he can make a name for himself," they would say, whispers hanging heavy in the air. It gnawed at his spirit, tainting his focus with doubts. Each refined curve and polished surface of his creation felt like an act of defiance against a world that insisted he stay grounded. Jake was grateful for Mr. Sanders' encouragement. The seasoned engineer's belief in him lit a spark that he fiercely protected. Together, they would brainstorm late into the evenings, discussing aerodynamics and engine outputs as if they were conspirators on a grand mission. Mr. Sanders' unyielding faith turned Jake's worries into momentum, pushing him to improve each detail. But with each passing day, the weight of expectations pressed harder. One evening, after a grueling session, he sank onto a crate by the barn door, feeling the air grow thick with uncertainty. He thought of Mr. Thompson, how he would smile and reassure him any time he doubted himself. "You've got to chase it, boy," he could hear the man's voice. "Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not meant for greatness." Jake stood up, determination sparking bright in his chest. He wiped the sweat from his brow, turned back to the tractor, and began adjusting the gears again. It was an act of reclaiming hope, a way to assert that his dreams weren't foolish. Each tweak, each sweat drop was a step toward freedom, a bridge from the shadows of his past to the horizon of his desires. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in purples and oranges, he caught sight of a group of young kids from the neighborhood peeking through the barn door. Their eyes sparkled with excitement, disbelief, and curiosity. Jake remembered what it felt like to be them. The wonder of possibility was infectious. "Hey, come here," he called, the warmth of a smile breaking through the churning doubts. They hesitated at first, but the allure of an adventure drew them in. He began to explain the parts of the tractor, their original purpose and the transformation he envisioned. As his words flowed, a sense of camaraderie enveloped them. His dreams started to take shape in their imaginations. The connection ignited further inspiration. The little group gathered supplies to help him, filled with laughter and shouts to encourage him. They were excited to support the boy who dared to dream. In their widening eyes, Jake saw the reflection of hope. What if his success could inspire not just himself, but others too? But amidst the lively chatter, a sudden silence fell. The buzz of enthusiasm faded as the town mayor appeared at the entrance, arms crossed and brow furrowed. The atmosphere shifted palpably. He cleared his throat, his gaze piercing, and spoke solemnly. "You think playing with this contraption will change your life? It's just a dream, son." Jake's heart clenched. The words hung in the air, heavy with doubt. But within him, the tiny flame of hope began to burn fiercer. Was he really setting himself up for failure, or could he prove everyone wrong? He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders as a sense of resolve washed over him. The moment of truth loomed ahead, and deep inside, Jake knew this was only the beginning. Would he defy expectations, or would the voice of the mayor echo in his mind forever? As he prepared to step into the spotlight, ready to confront not just the competition but the scornful whispers of his community, a new question rose to the surface. Could a single moment change everything? The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a cool dusk settling over the barn. Jake's hands trembled, nerves mixed with anticipation. He could still feel the weight of the mayor's words pressing down on him. It was more than just doubt. It felt like a curse placed upon his dreams. The kids from the neighborhood still lingered, perched on crates and barrels, stealing glances at him with wide eyes. They seemed oblivious to the mayor's chilling presence, and that intrigued him. Maybe they were right. What if his tractor could do more than just exist? It could inspire. "Hey, let us finish this together," he said, his voice steadying. The kids erupted into cheers, a sweet release of tension. They jumped to their feet, rushing to gather tools and supplies. With each clang of metal against metal, a new energy sparked within Jake. They were breathing life into his creation. And just like that, the old barn transformed again, radiating the warmth of shared dreams. "Okay, team," Jake shouted. "Let us focus on the engine. If we can get it running, we'll be that much closer." The children gathered round, their faces alight with determination. One boy, Timmy, barely 10 and full of questions, looked up at him. "Do you really think it'll work? What if it doesn't?" Jake paused, his heart racing. The fear that had crept in over the last few days threatened to engulf him. But there was something in Timmy's hopefulness that answered his own fears. "What if it does?" he replied, a grin breaking through his earlier anxiety. "Think about how amazing it'll be to see it roaring through town." The group kicked into high gear, voices blending into a symphony of excitement. Components were pulled apart and reassembled. Each laugh and cheer melted the icy grip of doubt that had plagued Jake since the mayor had intruded. As they worked, he realized their unwavering belief was dissolving the shadows of uncertainty. But then, just as momentum surged, darkness emerged again, creeping into the barn on unsettling whispers. The mayor hadn't left. He stood just outside, arms crossed like an immovable wall, eyes like daggers. The weight of his skepticism felt heavier than before. "Kids, don't you have better things to do?" he shouted, his voice rough and accusatory. Jake's heart sank at the harshness, but he could feel the kids rallying around him. Timmy straightened, hands on his hips. "No, we want to help Jake. This is going to be awesome." A spark flared in Jake. There was an undeniable strength in those words. This was more than a tractor. It was about belief. They weren't just building something mechanical. They were fostering courage, hope, and community. "Let us ignore him," Jake declared, feeling empowered. He turned back to the kids, who were now echoing his sentiment, cheering him on like a pack of determined warriors. "We're going to show everyone what this can be together." With renewed fervor, they pressed on, joyous energy radiating throughout the barn. The glow of the light bulb felt warmer now, illuminating their dreams more brightly. As Jake tightened the final bolt on the engine, he could almost hear Mr. Thompson's words ringing clearly. "Chase it, boy!" And then, just as they started to celebrate, disaster struck. A loud pop echoed, and thick black smoke began to seep from the engine. "Jake!" A girl screamed, eyes wide as panic struck their victory. His heart raced again, now from fear of failure. What had just happened? Could this small setback break his spirit? Or would he find a way to turn it into a lesson worth learning? As chaos erupted in the barn, Jake squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. But would he stand up and confront this challenge head-on? Or would the fear of failure send him spiraling back into doubt? Smoke filled the barn, swirling around the children like a dark cloud of uncertainty. Oil and metal created a foul, acrid smell that weighed heavily in the air. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the kids' eyes on him, searching for reassurance while their faces reflected confusion and fear. "Is it supposed to smoke like that?" Timmy asked, his voice trembling. Jake shook his head, but before he could speak, he was reminded of the mayor's skeptical words. "You don't really think you can do this, do you?" That doubt hung in the air like the thick smoke. "Stay back," he called, trying to control his panic as he stepped closer to the engine. It was a mix of metal and wires, shining and rugged, but now it was a hissing beast, coughing out puffs of smoke. He reached for a wrench, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. "I just need to figure out what happened, Jake. What if it's broken?" A girl whispered, biting her nails as she watched him. His hands trembled, a mirror to the atmosphere in the barn, heavy and uncertain. Was it really broken? The question hung over him like an impending storm. But then he looked around at the children, their young faces painted with pure concern. They believed in him. More than anything, they wanted this to work. He couldn't let them down. "No way!" Jake yelled, a newfound determination surging through him. "We're not quitting. This is just another challenge." He leaned closer to the engine, breathing deeply to steady himself. "We're a team, and teams don't give up." They watched intently as he examined the engine. He pulled at a wire and twisted another, feeling the pulse of possibility in his hands. Was that a spark he saw amongst the smoke? "But what if we can't fix it?" Timmy echoed, uncertainty creeping back into his voice. Jake spun to face the kids. Every inventor has faced the same thing. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before he made a light bulb. He tried to back up his confidence with historical strength. We're learning here too. Every mistake brings us closer to success. So let's figure this out. At his words, a flicker of hope ignited in their spirits. Jake could see it in their eyes. They felt it too. They knew they were part of something big. Almost instinctively, the children began to gather around him, hands reaching out to assist. They grabbed tools, eager to be part of the solution. "Let us take it apart," another girl shouted, her voice breaking through the worry. "Yeah, we can do this." The chorus of encouragement rose around him, drowning out the fear. They dove in, each kid working with a sense of urgency and purpose. Timmy was busy inspecting the wires, while the girl with the pink dress took control of the toolbox. Their laughter began to replace the earlier panic. As they worked, Jake could feel the bonds of community growing stronger, threading between them like hidden roots in the earth. Wasn't that what this tractor was about? Not just power or machinery, but pulling everyone together, making them part of something bigger than themselves. Just as he felt a breakthrough was near, a loud crash echoed from outside. The door flew open, and the mayor burst in. "What's going on in here?" he barked, eyebrows raised in disbelief at the sight before him. Jake's stomach dropped. Here was the very person who doubted him, crashing into their moment of unity. "What's all this?" The mayor's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Still chasing after that pipe dream?" Jake took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the children's solidarity surrounding him. This was bigger than doubt. This was life. With newfound strength, he stepped toward the mayor, eyes blazing. "We're building more than a tractor. We're building hope. We'll show you this is real, and you are wrong." The mayor's expression flickered, a momentary flash of uncertainty crossing his face. Could he change the mind of a man like that? And as Jake stood firm, heart hammering, he realized the coming moments might just hold the key to everything. Would the mayor see their passion, their effort, and realize what they were creating wasn't just a machine but a dream? But then, the engine let out another cough, and the smoke billowed thicker. Was it a signal of defeat or a burst of inspiration? A wave of uncertainty rolled through him. Could they truly transform this disaster into triumph? Or would they need to face the improbable yet again? The mayor's eyes narrowed, a tense silence enveloping the barn. Jake could feel the air thickening with expectation. The laughter of the kids faded, and the previously shared determination suddenly felt brittle. "Kids, keep working," Jake urged, trying to rally the spirits that were teetering on the edge. He turned back to the mayor, who stood as a wall of doubt, arms crossed. "You really think this is going to change anything?" The mayor's tone was dismissive, his arrogance barely concealed. "It's a failing project, just like I said. When it falls apart, who will you blame?" Jake clenched his jaw, fury bubbling beneath the surface. He refused to let this judgmental man crush everything they had fought for. "We're not failures, Mr. Mayor. This is about more than just a tractor. We're learning, growing." He gestured to the kids, their faces set with focus. These kids are fighting for their dreams. The mayor took a step closer, his expression mixed with condescension and contemplation. "Dreams don't run on fumes, son. They need engines that work." The accusation hit hard. Jake felt a knot in his stomach as the smoke curled around them, each tendril a reminder of their uncertainty. Did the mayor have a point? Minutes went by like hours as he grappled with the stark reality before him. But then, a glimmer of clarity sparked in his mind. Maybe it doesn't matter if this engine works right now. He spoke with a renewed vigor, the very thought lifting his spirit. What matters is what we learn from it. We're building resilience here together. The kids buzzed with energy, each child nodding in agreement. It was true. They were more than just mechanical tinkers. They were a community united under a common goal. And out of nowhere, Timmy burst through the crowd, a wire strung in his hands like a trophy. "Look, this wire connects to the ignition coil." His eyes sparkled with excitement. "If we fix this, maybe we can get it to start." The mayor's expression shifted slightly as he refrained a look of initial skepticism. This could not go on unrecognized. "You actually think you can make it work?" he asked almost incredulously. "Why not?" Jake answered defiantly, stepping closer to the engine, emboldened by the support radiating from the children. "Every inventor has to start somewhere. Today we've got everything we need right here. Who says we can't try?" With a flicker of unanticipated respect, the mayor uncrossed his arms. "All right, show me what you've got." His tone softened, just a fraction, but it was enough. Maybe there was a chance to bridge the gap. Jake rallied the kids. "Okay, everyone, we're going to regroup and focus. Listen to Timmy. What's next?" Spurred on by their renewed purpose, they moved as one, the initial fear evaporating like mist in the sun. Each small contribution mattered, and suddenly the barn buzzed with the sound of teamwork. Wrenches clinked and hope electrified each voice. Just as they began to put the pieces back together, a sudden realization washed over Jake. The mayor might have come in as a specter of doubt, but if they pulled this off, they could turn him into an ally. Their dynamic would shift. The engine sputtered and released one last puff of smoke, and then silence fell. Everyone held their breath, tension palpable as Jake readied himself to turn the ignition. But as he reached for the key, the ground beneath rumbled. Heavy footsteps echoed from outside, and the barn door creaked ominously. What was happening? Would the storm extinguish their flame or set them ablaze? The moment of truth loomed. The barn door rattled as the footsteps grew louder, every heartbeat echoing in Jake's ears. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the ignition key. The bright sunlight streaming through the wooden slats dimmed, casting long shadows across the floor, amplifying the sense of impending chaos. "Jake, what is happening?" Timmy whispered, wide-eyed, the wire forgotten in his grasp. The other kids sensed the shift, their excitement shifting to confusion and concern. The heavy door slammed open, and a group of men piled in. It was the mayor's crew workers, equipment operators, and a few stern-faced officials. Their collective presence felt like a weight pressing against the hopeful energy in the barn. "Everyone out. This area is under inspection," one of the men barked, his voice booming in authority. Dread washed over the children as their dream project came face to face with hostility. Jake's heart raced. He couldn't just walk away now. He stepped forward, adrenaline surging through him. "No, we're here to work and we have a right to do this." The man turned, momentarily taken aback by Jake's defiance. "This is not a game, kid. You don't want to mess with the mayor's orders. We're shutting this down. Your little tractor project is nothing but a nuisance." Jake felt a rush of anger but quickly anchored it with resolve. "It's not a nuisance. This is our passion. We believe in it." The words flew out, each one a shield against the wave of discouragement crashing towards him. The kids behind him stood firm, emboldened by his fervor. "This is our community. Passion doesn't pay the bills." The man shot back, crossing his arms like the mayor had moments before. "Maybe not, but it builds futures." Jake shouted, frustration transforming into clarity. "This is about learning and growing, finding out what we can achieve together." Just at that moment, the mayor's shadow fell over the group, an unyielding figure of authority. "What is going on here?" Jake's heart dropped, but he didn't back down. "Mr. Mayor, we're trying to build something. We may not have everything perfect, but we have hope. We can't let this project die before it even gets a chance." The mayor studied the scene. His eyes flicked from the determined faces of the children to the puzzled expressions of his men. The tension hung thick, but there was something in Jake's voice, a flicker of possibility that had not been there before. "Hope?" The mayor echoed slowly, his brow furrowing, almost as if he were seeing these kids for the first time. "What if?" Timmy squeaked, a sparkle of bravery in his small voice. "We could show you how hard we've worked. Just let us try once more." The mayor's facade cracked slightly. He seemed to wrestle with the demands of duty versus the tug of something more human. The men behind him looked uncertain, whispering amongst each other. "All right, you have 5 minutes," the mayor finally said, though it felt almost reluctant on his tongue. "Show me what you can do." "Thank you," Jake exclaimed, a surge of excitement crashing through him. The kids hooped and cheered, the atmosphere shifting once again to optimism. Jake turned back to the engine. Time was of the essence. "All right, everyone, let us show them our magic." The sound of clicking tools filled the barn again, the rhythm a heartbeat of hope. Jake felt his earlier doubts lift as he worked alongside Timmy and the others, laughter and chatter filling the air with renewed intensity. But just as they finagled the last wire in place, a low rumble of thunder echoed outside. The sky was darkening rapidly, and despite the urgency, an ominous feeling settled in as Jake looked around. Would this storm ruin their moment? As the last seconds ticked away and the key was finally turned in the ignition, the engine groaned to life, sputtering but defiantly roaring as the kids cheered. But then, with a crack, lightning lit up the sky, and the barn shook as something big and menacing approached what could be coming next. Would their moment of triumph be erased by the storm beyond or become the catalyst for something even greater? The roaring engine filled the barn, a sound that wrapped around the kids like a warm blanket. Jake grinned as the melody of machinery and delighted shouts washed over him. But that joy was suddenly cut short by a deafening crack of thunder that rattled the barn's old wooden beams. "Did you hear that?" one kid gasped, wide-eyed. The smiles faded as they turned their gaze to the darkening skies outside. Shadows loomed, growing ever closer, just like the storm that threatened to upend everything they worked so hard for. "Focus, everyone. We can't let fear stop us," Jake shouted, trying to rally the group again. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel, more determined than ever. But the excited energy was now tinged with anxiety. As raindrops began to patter against the barn roof, a frantic cadence that sang a warning of the approaching storm. Timmy glanced over at Jake, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Do you think they'll let us finish?" he asked quietly, worry knitting his brow. For a moment, Jake hesitated. He could hear the wind howling, the storm swirling outside like a menacing predator. "We have to try," he said finally, his voice steadier than he felt. "This is our chance." With each second that ticked away, doubt crept in. What if the storm destroyed their project? What if they failed right in front of the mayor? But Jake shoved those thoughts aside. They had come this far, and letting fear win was not an option. He hit the accelerator, the engine's growl roaring louder as the wheels sprang to life. The barn lit up with excitement again, and the sounds of the kids cheering fueled his resolve. They had something to show, something beautiful blooming from their hard work and persistence. But just as Jake was about to navigate the course they had set up, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the barn. It split the sky, and for a heartbeat, everything froze: the joyous laughter, the vibrations of energy, even the approach of the storm. Then the lights flickered, and the generator sputtered, dimming their radiance as the storm bared its teeth. Panic threatened to erupt. The kids turned to Jake, their faces a mix of fear and determination. "Jake!" Timmy shouted, "What do we do?" "Stay calm. We can do this," Jake said, gripping the wheel tighter. "Let us finish strong." But just as they prepared to push forward, the barn door swung open violently, driven by the howling wind. Everyone looked up, their hearts thumping in their chests. Between the dark clouds looming outside, a figure appeared: an old man, soaked to the bone, fear etched into his face. "Help! You have to come quickly," he gasped, catching his breath. "The river's rising. The town needs everyone. We might lose everything if we don't act fast." The words hung heavy in the air, slamming into them like another thunderclap. The project, the hopes, everything they had worked for suddenly seemed small against the reality of the storm and its potential devastation. The barn trembled again, this time beneath the weight of shared decision-making. Jake felt the weight of leadership in that moment, an urge to help battling against his dreams of showing off the tractor. "Kids," he said slowly, heart racing. "We need to help, don't we?" "Yes," they all shouted, a chorus of determination rising to meet the incoming storm. With a jolt of adrenaline, they quickly abandoned the tractor for their community. Together, they slipped out of the barn, faces set with resolve. The real test wasn't in the engine, but in what they could achieve together when their town was at risk. But as they stepped into the blustering wind, each child's heart raced with uncertainty. They had put everything into their project. What would it mean to pause it now? Jake led the way, the storm swirling around them as they plunged into the chaos. In action, the danger and rush were palpable. But could they balance the drive for their dream with the need of their community? And as they raced toward the rising river, there was one question burning in Jake's mind. What sacrifice would be required of him to keep both their dream and their town alive? The wind screamed as they sprinted through the open barn door, each child battling against the current of the storm. Water splashed at their feet, soaking their shoes while the sky unleashed its fury. Yet, The real storm within them clamored louder, the conflict of passion versus responsibility. They were mere kids, but today, they felt the weight of the world on their small shoulders. "Jake!" shouted Sarah, her voice barely cutting through the wind. "We can't just leave the tractor behind. What if it gets ruined?" Jake felt a pang of guilt. The tractor had been their pride, but the sight of the old man's desperate face resurfaced in his mind, igniting a fire within him. "We can rebuild the tractor, but we can't replace people," he replied, forcing himself to stay strong. "Right?" Timmy piped up, his eyes wide but fierce. "We can help with the town first. That's what we always talked about, right? Community." Jake nodded, pride swelling in his chest. They were a team, every one of them ready to step up. They continued running, the outline of the river gradually sharpening through the sheets of rain. Each step felt like a leap into a daunting unknown, but they were together. And together, they were powerful that as they reached the water's edge, the sight that greeted them was terrifying. The river roared like a beast, swallowing banks and roaring back at them. People were gathered, frantically working to reinforce the levees and push sandbags into place as the water climbed closer to their homes. "Jake!" yelled Sarah again, her voice crackling with urgency. "What should we do?" He took a deep breath, assessing the chaos. "We split up." He glanced at his friends, determination shining in their eyes. "Some of you help carry sandbags. Others can help evacuate people if necessary. We can make a difference." The kids nodded, the electric spark of adrenaline coursing through them. It felt as if they had become something bigger than themselves. As they rolled up their sleeves and dove into the fray, Jake's heart raced not just from fear but a deep-rooted sense of purpose. Sarah and Timmy grabbed sandbags, the weight heavy but lighter together. They huddled with a group of adults who shouted instructions, their voices overlapping in urgency. "Over there. Stack them higher. We can hold this water back." Jake felt a swell of gratitude seeing everyone work side by side. The power of community surged through him, warming against the chill of the storm. Still, there was anxiety simmering just below the surface. Each thunderclap echoed his worries. What if they weren't enough? "Jake!" A voice broke through the action. It was Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman whose house sat perilously close to the flood. "We need to get my husband to safety. He can't help himself." Jake nodded, his breath catching at the urgency in her eyes. "I'll find him," he promised before pushing back through the crowd, weaving his way through the chaos, every fiber of his being focused on that one mission. He stormed into the old house, each step echoing with determination. "Mr. Thompson," he called, his voice steady despite the storm howling outside. Opening the door to find him hunched in a chair, weakened and disoriented, was a jolt to Jake's chest. "We need to go. Now." As he offered his hand, he felt the weight of the old man's helplessness meld with the drive to help. But what if he couldn't get them both back out in time? With a firm grip, he helped Mr. Thompson to his feet. "You can do this. We're going to get through it." But as they turned to leave, the earth shook beneath them, an ominous rumble that sent a wave of panic surging through the old house. And that's when Jake's heart raced even faster. What if the storm unleashed something even more powerful than they'd prepared for? Would he be able to keep his promise and save everyone? Jake's pulse quickened as the rumbling intensified. It wasn't just the storm. It felt like the house was trying to tell them something, a warning urging them to move faster. Mr. Thompson leaned heavily on him, each step becoming a battle against the weight of fear and urgency. "Hold on tight," Jake urged, pushing through the door and into the rain. The world outside was chaos, trees bending violently, debris swirling in the air. The noise was overwhelming. He pulled Mr. Thompson along as they navigated through the slick grass, desperately trying to dodge branches and puddles that could swallow them whole. "Where's Mrs. Thompson?" Jake shouted, panic creeping in with the wind. He needed to know she was safe. "She's at the garage." Mr. Thompson grunted, struggling to keep up. His breath came in wheezes, but his voice was steady. She was helping the neighbors. Just that thought pushed Jake to move faster. He could picture the garage, a simple structure that might become a lifeboat for their neighbors. If they could just get there. As they rounded a corner, Jake spotted the garage, its door flung wide open. The place was bustling, people moving in and out, carrying anything they could salvage. He tugged Mr. Thompson along, reaching the entrance just as several others rushed out. Jake! It was Sarah, her hair plastered against her forehead, eyes wild. We've got to reinforce the levee. The water breaking through. Jake's heart sank at her words. A part of him wanted to stay and help, but he couldn't leave Mr. Thompson behind. You all go. I need to get him to Mrs. Thompson, he urged, pointing back into the garage where the crowd was gathering. Be safe, Timmy shouted back, his face set with determination. Jake nodded, that same determination igniting a fire within him. He pulled Mr. Thompson into the garage, scanning the packed room. There was chaos, but somehow everyone was working together, focused yet frantic. He caught a glimpse of Mrs. Thompson in the corner, her hands trembling as she piled blankets and essentials into a bag. Mrs. Thompson, Jake called, relief flooding him. She spun around, a flash of dread crossing her features before she rushed over, enveloping Mr. Thompson in her frail arms. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. We need to move, he urged again, glancing outside where the dark waters threatened to spill onto the street. The heavy winds began to howl even louder, as if nature itself were a warning bell. Let us get everyone to safety. Before they could react, another rumble echoed, deeper and more terrifying than before. Like thunder from the depths of the earth, the ground quaked violently beneath them. The lights flickered, casting shadows that danced on the walls, and for a horrifying moment, Jake feared the building might not stand against the storm. Outside, we have to get to higher ground, Sarah shouted. People surged toward the garage door in a rush, panic flashing in their eyes. Jake grabbed Mrs. Thompson's arm, urging her to follow as he led the way. His mind raced. He had to help everyone, but how could he? Could they make it to their neighbors' homes across the street? The earth shook again, and with each tremor, another part of him splintered, aware that time was slipping away. How much longer could they hold back the river? Each child had a choice to make: to help, to flee, to face the fears that threatened to consume them as they pushed outside. Rain lashed at their faces, the world obscured by the downpour and desperation. This was only the beginning of the storm, not just in the sky, but within themselves. And Jake could only hope that together, they could endure. But as they raced toward the hillside, tearing through the wind and rain, a terrifying thought held him captive. What if their community wasn't enough? What if this powerful storm could scatter their resolve into the chaos of the flood? In that moment, with thunder crashing overhead, Jake realized the moment of truth was arriving, and they had to stand together or risk losing everything. Would they rise to the challenge, or would they drown in the tide of troubles surrounding them? The storm raged on, but so did Jake's heart. With every stride toward safety, his conviction deepened. This was more than a dream, this was a lifeline for everyone. As they climbed the hill, raindrops crashed against the skin like cold beads of reality, but in each drop was a shared determination to withstand this tempest. Keep moving, he shouted, leading the group, but inside, the weight of their mission pressed hard against his chest. Each face around him was gripped by fear yet infused with courage. It was a mix that stirred something powerful within him, a resolve that felt inherited, woven into the very fabric of the community they were fighting for. The ground beneath them heaved again with another crack of thunder, and Jake glanced back at the town. They could see the river rising, darkness swallowing up the edges of their homes like an insatiable beast. Heart pounding, he kept pushing forward. We have to reach the evacuation point. Finally, they reached the crest. The world around them looked different from this vantage point. A sea of swirling water mixed with the fading light. But through it all, Jake felt a pulse of hope and resilience in their unity. His group gathered, catching their breath as they surveyed the chaos below. Jake, Sarah panted, her voice barely piercing the cacophony. What if we can't save everyone? What if we fail? He turned to her, the gravity of her words ringing in his ears. Those doubts loomed over them like dark clouds threatening to break through. "We can't think about failure, Sarah," he reassured, the urgency sharpening his voice. "We are a community. We're doing this together." Timmy, still clutching that wire from the tractor, stepped forward, face fierce. "If we work like we did on the tractor, we can build something bigger. We can help them." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, trying to hone in on the flames sparking in Timmy's eyes. "Remember how we built that tractor?" Timmy continued, "If we stick together, we can help those in danger too." Suddenly everything clicked. The engine hadn't just been metal and gears. It had been about teamwork. About hope. "You're right," Jake exclaimed. "Let us organize. If we can work together on the ground, we can save our neighbors." The kids rallied around him, their faces illuminating with determination. It wasn't enough just to help themselves. They had to extend their spirit outwards. "Hurry back down," Jake called out. "We work in teams. Some of us evacuate, others fill sandbags. Every hand counts." Armed with renewed purpose, his group surged forward, working with infectious energy. As they descended, Jake felt the support behind him, each child bringing their own unique talents. They mobilized, moving like clockwork, each person assuming their roles. The sight of others struggling towards them stoked the embers of courage in Jake's heart. He didn't just want to help, he had the fire to lead. Within moments, neighbors joined them, feeling the energy shift. "Jake," someone called out, a voice that then rang out close. "I saw the sandbags. Let us fortify the bank." Jake nodded, pulling Sarah and Timmy along with him. They reached the first water-soaked families, piling supplies into trucks, gathering all the essentials that could mean survival. But as they moved, panic tried to unleash itself alongside the raging storm. "What if this doesn't help? What if?" someone murmured. "Together," Jake shouted again, his voice battling the storm. "We cannot let fear defeat us. Focus on our task. We create our own destiny." And as they worked, something shifted in the atmosphere. Confidence cascaded like the rain was about to recede. Jake could feel it, a gentle warmth amidst the storm. Each small victory, each anxious face transformed into smiles, became a lifeline. Finally, when they thought nothing more could threaten their commitment, their tireless help caught the mayor's eye. He stood to the side, arms still crossed, but for the first time, doubt flickered in his gaze. "You're really doing this," he muttered almost to himself. "They believe," Jake shouted, driving home the passion in his heart. "Look at us, united." And as thunder rumbled again, a strange stillness washed over their world. The wind picked up, but the heart of what they were doing pulsed with unmatched strength. They had set aside doubt. Suddenly, with a cascading crash, the levee broke, and water surged towards them, moments away from overwhelming everything they had built. But Jake stood firm, eyes resolute. "Now," he called, voice surging over the roar. "Form a line. Carry the sandbags. We can do this." The thrill of urgency pumped through the crowd. They moved like wildfire, their bodies ignited by a collective will to utterly change their futures. Each stack of sandbags whispering promises of hope. As they fortified their defenses together, something miraculous happened. Lights flickered on in homes around them, illuminating the night with a warm, golden glow, a sign of resilience. They were still racing against the fierce storm, yet somehow each moment felt less about the flood and more about the strength within themselves and their relationships. With the last sandbag in place, Jake turned to his friends, breathing heavily. He felt the strength of community thrum through him. This is we're meant for. And as the storm quieted, brightening the horizon, he realized it wasn't the tractor that had transformed his intentions, but the connections. Together, they had forged a new future, vulnerable yet powerful, steadfast against storms of any kind. This is what it felt like to truly live, to lead, to embrace hope, and to redefine their dreams together. The journey was just beginning. If they could withstand this, they could tackle anything. And from the echoes of their labors, a new anthem arose, one that sang of resilience, community, and shining futures that nobody could dim. Now, in this bright moment of triumph, I beg you, Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.